Hello and welcome to Geek Warning, the podcast that puts the world's most interesting cycling tech and more into one place. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week to geek out, fellow tech editor at Escape Collective, Suvi Loponen. How are you doing, Suvi?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. And hello to Zach Edwards of the Boulder Groupetto.
Hello.
Hello. For those wondering where Ronan is this week, some last minute child demands meant he's been drawn away for this episode, but later in the episode you will be hearing from Brad Copeland as he joins Zach and I in answering a few member questions in our Ask a Wrench segment, a segment that is now only available if you're listening to the podcast on the Escape Collective member feed. I'll give more details on that later. Alright, before we get into the topics that range from Suvi's wonderful feature on PFASs, the Cannondale SuperX, and even some leaked Shimano, I do have a bit of a corrections corner. So to confirm, we did hear from Shram after last week's episode where we spoke about Zoe Backstead winning the Under-23 Cyclocross World Champs on tubeless. We've had confirmation that there were no inserts inside the tires. So there you go. That's quite interesting. And the other one that we heard about, we had a little on our minds piece about why are some mechanics on Instagram so angry. And I actually heard from some of the mechanics about this, and they said they're angry because they care when others so clearly don't. So I don't know. It's fine. It's good enough justification. I understand it. Zach, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, totally agree.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's jump into the big topic of this week, which is Suvi. You've spent, dare I say, months working on a feature about PFAS, forever chemicals, and the use of that in the cycling industry.
It is months. It has been now months since I started on the topic.
Yeah. And I think it's probably fair to say it's not the last time you'll be touching on this topic. I think there's more to come on it. But yeah, I mean, for a brief intro, I mean, for those that aren't familiar with it, what is a PFAS, or what are PFASs?
Well, there's loads of them, which is what I learned. I always thought that because it's such a nice 4-letter acronym, it's just couple chemicals, but it's actually, there's a lot of definitions of how many there are, but there's more than 10,000 of these chemicals. And the official, what PFAS stands for, is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. But they're basically, as you said, forever chemicals. So they're man-made chemicals. They were discovered in the 1930s and then commercialized. And the reason why they've been used is because they're really, really good at this kind of repelling water and stains, and there's lots of applications where that is very beneficial, and sometimes it's almost too beneficial.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you go back far enough, it was sort of like the companies like 3M and DuPont, I guess, sort of pioneered these things, and yeah, very big in many industries. But I guess in cycling, where would you find these things most commonly?
I think waterproof garments, so anything that has, well, like if you think anything that is really stain or water repellent even, so even it could be even your bib tights or, yeah, your waterproof jackets, but even water repellent jackets, windproof jackets, probably any jerseys, your shoes probably. And then when it comes to bike maintenance, there's chain lubes, probably a lot of this maintenance sprays, frame coatings. Even some of the components have some coatings that will contain PFAS. I mean, paints have PFAS in them. I think the list just goes on. Even in the cycling industry, it's hard to find something that probably doesn't contain a little bit of them.
Yeah. And what's the issue these days? Like, I know it's fairly new research in the grand scheme of things in the last few decades, but what sort of health implications are we looking at here?
There's quite a lot of research on this since like the first kind of health implications from PFAS came out like 1960s, but then they were kind of largely ignored for decades and decades, and nothing happened. But yeah, there's a lot of like concerns that they cause cancer, hormone disruption, kind of liver, thyroid issues. There's a lot of different health conditions linked to PFAS, but because there's so many of them, there's a little illustration in the article on the website that kind of shows like how only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to PFAS has actually been researched. So of these 10,000 chemicals, the effects of them are really under-researched, so we don't really know what they do.
Yeah, and the big scary thing is that they don't break down. Is that right? So like that's what the name forever chemicals come from.
Exactly. Yeah, and they are like these studies that they then kind of compound not only in the environment but also in our bodies. So that's the issue, that they never ever break down. Even though someone was in the comments pointing out there is some research on like how we could maybe get them out of our bodies, but it's still, they never really break down, at least with the current kind of resources that we have.
Just excreted out with all the microplastics.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, you spent a long time working on this. What was one of the more interesting things that you learned during the creation of the article?
I think probably just the scale of it was probably, I was surprised by that, even though I knew about PFAS, like to some extent, like broadly, but just didn't know exactly where. And I think one of the reasons why the article just kept growing and growing was that every week there's something happening in this sphere. So I could have continued months and months, keep adding and adding things every week into it. And I think I probably went in a bit naive as well, because I went in to kind of figure out like, how are these companies achieving to be PFAS free? And what I basically came out with was that achieving PFAS free is technically not possible. So I think that was probably the most surprising thing, because that has been in the headlines for a lot, that companies are now PFAS free. And I thought like, they can be, but the truth is that they can't really be that. So
why is that? Like, without going into too much detail, I mean, all this is in your article, but why can't they be? Or why is it that the companies that are trying to be PFAS free are actually potentially still have these forever chemicals involved?
So there's a lot of cross-contamination or contamination because they've been used for, well, I guess nearly a century now. It's just everywhere in the supply chain. So there's one source that I spoke to that were detailing how they developed this new jacket that was PFAS free, and then Greenpeace went and tested it and found that there's PFAS in it, and that was because there'd been other jackets within the retail environment that had PFAS, and then somehow when they just basically rub against each other or they're just in the same space, it kind of just transfers from one another. It's in water, so if you just basically drip water on the jacket and then you test the water, I mean, the water already has, So basically, it's really, really hard to clean up the whole system. So it's almost impossible to say that it would be free of them.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this is something that your article touches on, but like for those that are wanting to buy and wanting to be conscious of this, what should people first be looking for in their research of equipment? Like, how do you try to reduce the amount of PFAS or avoid product that is specifically made with these chemicals?
Yeah, I think before talking, and I don't necessarily want to list like specific brands here,
Sure.
But I think one of the points in the article as well was about, I asked all the sources really like, what should we do with the stuff that we have now? Like, there's obviously brands are using this as a way to also market those new products that are PFAS free as much as they can be PFAS free. But you shouldn't probably rush to buy all these new things just for the sake of it, because some of the chemicals that are in the old stuff isn't necessarily going to harm you. So if you keep using the shake jar jacket, it's probably not going to be any worse than binning it, because then the chemicals from there are going to end up in the water streams anyway. But
sure.
a lot of brands are moving now because of regulations, not because of free will, into these PFAS-free materials. And I think what I would recommend is just kind of doing a basic search online of whether the brand that you're considering is doing anything or mentions PFAS anywhere on their site. There's certain brands like Rab was really good when I was looking at them. They might not have done all the things right, but they were pretty transparent about the things that they also did wrong. And I think that transparency is something that we really need to ask from brands and the companies that you want to buy from. there's going to be these products that still contain PFAS in the market for years to come. So you can look at the materials. It's not a cake. But yeah, the materials used, and if they are like the old style Gore-Tex materials, for example, like they will contain PFAS. So yeah, just kind of do a little bit of like digging into it. It might take a little bit more time, but just it's probably worth it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, when you're saying all this, what springs to my mind is like the very, very common use of the term DWR, like durable water resistant coating. Is that always PFAS, or can that be something else?
It can be like it can be PFAS free, and that's basically now required for it to be PFAS free. And then about the new garments as well, they need a lot more care because they don't have that oil repellency, especially that the old ones had. So you do need to reproof them, which is then you can choose what you're going to reproof them with. And there's loads of these products that are PFAS free. Probably most of them now are because of the regulations. So yeah, just kind of read the labels, and if the labels don't really tell what you're looking for, then maybe just drop them a message and ask. And if they don't reply, maybe just don't then buy the stuff from them. Sure.
Yeah, what surprised me is sort of the silence you got from some pretty leading names in the industry in creating this article. I mean, yeah, like I know Gore, you covered this in your article. Gore, you contacted many times over, thinking that they are technically the leading name in the space, but they just kept pointing you towards what was publicly available on their website rather than actually giving you the why or a bit of a background on where they're going. So I found that quite interesting. But Zach, in the workshop, are you thinking about this at all?
I mean, I guess historically, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, right, it's like, I guess maybe naivety, but it's kind of like my initial thought was like, oh, rain jackets and like maybe some chain loops and stuff. But it sounds like it's kind of in everything, which is a bit depressing.
Do you wear gloves when you work on bikes?
Yes, every day, all the time. Yeah, okay. I mean, if you don't wear gloves, then you're just like washing your hands constantly and then hands get dry.
Yeah. And like in terms of maintenance products you're using, have you consciously reduced the amount of like chain lubes that have PTFE or Teflon or similar, or have you not changed so much?
I mean, I guess like kind of transitioned a lot of wax stuff, and still have like a stock of old chain lube, which I'm not just probably going to just pour out. But yeah, something more to think about for sure.
Yeah. Nice. All right, Suvi, where can people find out more about this?
Well, they can find out at least a little bit more reading the article that is up on at escapecollective.com now. And there are some follow-ups planned for that article. And if you listeners have any ideas, you can go and comment there, because there's already a few ideas that I've thought about. But yeah, do comment there. There is an audio version of this article coming out. So if you don't care to read, I will describe the article to you in full.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, yeah, great work on that one. A big lift and an important topic. So yeah, certainly keen to see where else you go with that topic. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Cannondale SuperX. The SuperX returns. Suvi, you've been busy. You actually wrote about this one as well. What is the SuperX replacing?
It is replacing the Super 6 Evo SE and CX. I always have to rethink if it's XC or CX, but CX.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically the return of the SuperX, but as a gravel bike instead of being a cross bike.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Cannondale's new SuperX was historically always their cyclocross race bike. It is now their gravel race bike, but sort of sharing double duty still as kind of a cyclocross bike for those that want one from the Cannondale name. And yeah, the very confusingly named Super 6 Evo SE and CX, which share a name with the road bike platform. They've ditched that name now understanding that it was confusing. So yeah, that was a short-lived strategy on the naming front. But
yeah, I was about to just say about the name, it was really refreshing because they actually, in the press pack, they admitted openly that, well, the name was confusing. And they also admitted that, they abandoned now the AI offset tech. And they also said about that very openly, like, well, it was a good idea at the time, but we kind of decided, the days are gone for it now. So it was refreshing from Cannondale.
Yeah, Zach, can you give us a brief synopsis of what AI is and how annoying it was?
Yeah, so I actually had one of the previous versions, the Evo SE, which I'd say overall I really, really liked the bike, like in terms of geometry and how it rode and everything. But yeah, the AI proprietary stuff is quite annoying. So they did, basically the rear wheel was dished to kind of offset the drivetrain. And then they had a proprietary crank made from SRAM. They had a longer spindle and kind of like a predecessor to the new wide group set stuff. So yeah, just kind of offset the chain line a bit while keeping the wheel still in line with the frame, which is fine once it's all set up, but a bit annoying if you have multiple wheels or borrow a wheel from someone or kind of want to switch anything out, or particularly cranks or like power meters were kind of an issue.
Yeah. So it did really limit the number of cranks, what cranks you could fit in the frame, and it created a lot of confusion, especially if you're trying to run like 2x systems on it. But yeah, also just the inability to just grab any regular wheel. You'd have to redish the wheel, which means changing how the rim is centered over the hub. So you'd have to shift it over a few millimeters, which in some wheels you could do by unwinding half the spokes and tightening the other half, but often you'd potentially need longer spokes on one side, so it wasn't the simplest of things. And then you'd have a wheel that was offset specifically to that bike, so you then couldn't put it back into a different frame. So yeah, thankfully Cannondale have adopted what everyone else has been doing, and yeah, according to them, as Suvi said, that's the result of the industry catching up and having the wide chain line. So Shimano GRX and SRAM wide sort of place that chainring out further outboard than they used to. So it gives that extra tire clearance that Cannondale was trying to achieve. Speaking of tire clearance, Suvi, how wide is this SuperX?
It is 51 at the front, 48 at the back.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. And that's probably with like a 6 millimeters of surrounding clearance. So
it was 4.
I think. Oh, 4 millimeters. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, in a day and age where I think people are looking at 50 millimeters as the sort of requirement for, or bare minimum that they want out of a modern gravel bike, what do we think of that?
I think it's enough, but I know there were quite a lot of comments already like this is not okay. But yeah, I think 51 at the front, 48 at the back, it's gonna cater for most. And if it is a race gravel bike, I'd say that's for most applications. If you want to go fast, that's good. There's probably some courses, as we've covered before, where you would want to put really wide mountain bike tires on, but then from vast majority, I would say this is still enough. Yeah,
it seems like 48 should be enough. Like it is 2 millimeters shy of where some other bikes are, or 3 millimeters shy, but that's not a lot, and it should really be enough to squeeze in like a 29 by 2.0 mountain bike tire, which is still pretty wide. Zach, are you seeing demand from your customers about gravel bikes? And I mean, I know you're in Boulder, where
we do have quite smooth dirt around here. We've got a few people that are kind of, it seems like they've been experimenting with wider tires, but for the most part, most people seem to have kind of settled on that like 40 to 45 range and are pretty happy with that. Particularly like if you're not at the front of a pro gravel race, like that's gonna be mostly fine for you. I think it's a bit annoying that it's different tire clearance front and rear. I know like usually the fork has more clearance than the rear, but to list it as different clearance is a bit odd. Like usually you buy a set of tires, which maybe this is kind of more of the like on a mountain bike where you're running a different front versus a different rear. But yeah, historically on gravel and road, you're buying a set of tires, even if they are sold individually. So I think that could be a bit annoying for some people.
Yeah, fair enough. What stood out to me with this bike is that the SuperX, they're saying it's a gravel race bike and it's optimized around gravel tires, but the bottom bracket drop on this one sort of stood out to me. It seems like it's quite high. Like I'm looking at the geometry chart. Medium sized frames sort of sit at like a 69 millimeter bottom bracket drop. Whereas like we're seeing, off the top of my head, like a Trek Demane, which is a endurance road bike built around wide tires, that's sitting at 80 mil bottom bracket drop. It feels very cyclocrossy for a gravel race bike. I mean, what do you think on that one, Zach?
I mean, I like that because I am a fan of cyclocross, so I like a bike that I can go ride on gravel all summer, and then when fall comes around, swap the tires, maybe change the gearing, and go jump in a couple of cross races as well, without having a bike that kind of sucks at both, or like is particularly bad at one over the other, right? Like it kind of, like that's why I've got a Crux, and that kind of ticks those boxes as well. It's like a good solid gravel bike, but also very race capable for cross. So I think it's sweet, but I'm sure some people will complain.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, it's like the gravel race category / crossover to cross is
so small.
Feels to me like not just that, it feels to me like this like pursuit of compromise. It's like to race cyclocross, it's UCI governed, and therefore they have like wheelbase restrictions and how far the front center can be. And yeah, I mean, as a result of that, I don't know, like I feel like we're in this weird space where it's like it's perhaps not the best bike it can be for gravel, but then maybe it's not, it's basically at that point it's a wide tired cyclocross bike. I don't know if that's a fair statement. Is that a
bad thing though?
And maybe that's exactly what most people need, but
yeah, I think sometimes people too tend to get hung up on like very small differences in geo rather than like, okay, does this bike fit and does it handle well? They're like, oh, I'm not going to buy this when the bottom bracket drops a couple millimeters different or some angle. It's like sure. I think people get too hung up on that rather than like, does the bike ride well?
Yeah.
So.
And it probably is for someone. If you do, if cross and gravel are your thing, then it's probably good that you have this bike that you can do both and it's familiar. Like I think like Zach says, like if you like how it rides, then that's probably more important than does it actually fit in the category of what a gravel bike should be.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess, yeah, as far as it riding well, it seems like no one has ridden this new bike, but yeah, Zach,
Ronan
you and I
will.
had... Ronan will. Yeah, Zach, you and I think, spent quite a bit of time on the previous generation SuperX, and that was a really lovely riding bike. So, yeah, if it sticks to that, I think they've got a good bike here.
The only thing I'm concerned about is the seat post design, because that's why I inevitably ended up selling my old Super 6 Evo SE, because no matter what I did, the seat post would creak so horrendously loud. And this seems to use the same design.
Yeah, it's sharing a D-shaped seat post with the SuperX Evo and with the CAD 13. So I don't know, is that something you've seen issues with?
Yeah, because it was, I think, the same post design as the previous Super 6, like the road bike, not the latest one with the really narrow post, but the previous one used the same seat post as well, and it seems like it's a fairly common issue of creaking. Hopefully they've got that sorted. Like I don't think it was necessarily a bad design. It kind of seemed more of like a quality control, just things not quite to tolerance.
Yeah. All right. Well, one to watch. We're hopefully going to get one of these in for review at Escape. And yeah, I mean, on paper, it looks like a pretty great bike. And it's nice to see that Cannondale has once and for all, across its range, now ditched AI integration and have basically adopted like English threaded bottom brackets and standard wheels. So progress. Or is it progress if you just go backwards? Anyway, it's something and it's positive. All right, the next topic to discuss is something that's been leaking all over the internet. It looks like Shimano has a new XTR on the way. And from what we can tell, I mean, details are scarce because this is literal leaks. But yeah, it looks like the next generation of Di2 might be fully wireless based on the couple images we've seen. Yeah, there's photos of a derailleur and a battery for the derailleur. I mean, yeah, what else have you seen there, Zach?
I mean, yeah, I've seen some photos and patent drawings and stuff. I don't know. It to me seems like it's expected, and it has been for a number of years. But to me, it kind of also seemed to not really stand out. Like, why, unless I really just was a Shimano fan, why would I buy this over transmission stuff? Like, it still looks like it uses a normal hanger, which, like, whether that's good or bad, like, I think the general public have seen what SRAM has done, and are going to see the new Shimano and be like, oh, why is that using a derailleur hanger that can bend and break? I don't know. It seems more reminiscent of like first gen Axis Eagle stuff. So I don't know. I saw it and I was kind of disappointed, and I'm not trying to be mean.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it does, like when you look at it, it does, you're right. It looks like the previous generation of SRAM Eagle. It uses a normal derailleur hanger. I'm guessing it's the same number of gears as current generation as well, but like I don't know, maybe it's exactly what the market needs, which is like not to force a change for the sake of change, in that there are a lot of, if you think about how long Shimano Mechanical's been out in the market for, it's like 8 years or something now. That's a lot of bikes that Shimano could potentially sell upgrades to. I mean, I even personally own a mountain bike that is great in almost every way, except that it doesn't have UDH, and that this, that bike currently has XTR mechanical on it. This new stuff could potentially be like a nice upgrade for a bike like that. But yeah, I guess my main thought on this is that SRAM has created a very good derailleur hanger in the form of UDH, and you just don't see derailleur hangers breaking like they used to. So, I mean, you can kind of stand on a modern derailleur mounted to a UDH almost just as well as you can stand on a transmission derailleur. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe SRAM has created the perfect mounting thing for Shimano.
I mean, right? Like I'm sure it's going to work really, really well, and I think all the photos have just been of the derailleur and the shifter. So it would be cool if it worked with old cassettes and old crank and chainring and chains, and not came up with some new standard. But that's a bit to be seen yet.
Yeah. So anyway, it's floating around on the internet. I don't think we can talk about it too much more, but one to watch, and it's probably still a little while away, but will be interesting to see how new things actually are with that. But yeah, anyway, let's get on to a topic on our minds. And what's on my mind this week has been I've been loving the latest Shimano S-Fire mountain bike shoes, the XC903, I think they are. Mine are in white, and I was stoked when I first got them. And then within weeks, I managed to put my foot directly into a bog hole, and they've never been white since. And I guess what's on my mind is that I'm seeing every single brand of shoes come out with white off-road racing shoes, and I'm questioning whether it's a smart thing.
It's not
it's
a new
stylish thing.
I feel like white mountain bike shoes have been around for ages. Like I remember when I was a junior, I had like some sweet all white CDs.
Yeah, it's definitely like the return of a trend though, right? Like it sort of went away for a few years, and it's coming back with, I don't know, I'm seeing every single new shoe coming out in a white option. It sounds like, Suvi, would you buy a pair of white off-road shoes?
To know, I still feel conflicted about this, because I used to be very much like white road shoes, absolutely. Like road shoes need to be white. I can deal with others, but preferably white. But then off-road, I would go for darker colors because they wouldn't show the dirt as much, less cleaning, because they would still be dirty, but yeah, I just wouldn't clean them and they would look as bad. But I definitely have, in the last couple of years, I've got a few very light but not pure white off-road shoes, and I do like them. But I think it's 100%. It's just like because of how they look.
Yeah, it does look. They don't
make me any faster. But
I don't know about that.
Maybe there is a psychological impact that they do have. Like if you do treat them as race shoes, if I only wear them for a race, like I do have specific socks that I would wear maybe that make me feel, I don't know, more put together. So maybe shoes as well. Why not? For race taste.
Zach,
I never raced though.
Yeah, fair enough. Where's your heart on this one, Zach? Are you running white mountain bike shoes?
Me? Yeah, I definitely. Like always white mountain bike shoes, for sure. Without a question. On XC, I would say. Trail bike, that's a bit different. Okay.
And always in white?
Yeah, got to.
Interesting. Okay, well then the big question, what color are your socks?
Usually black. Unless it's race day, then throw some white socks on that'll never be white again.
Yeah, I guess that's my big issue with the white mountain bike shoes. It's like the shoes you can kind of clean. I mean, mine are not the same color they once were. There's like a stained brownish tint to them, which is annoying. But the socks, like it pains me to wear black socks with white shoes, but it feels like a necessity off-road. Otherwise, you're like wasting white socks. So I don't know. It's a trend that I'm not convinced about.
I have more of an issue with the white socks. Not an issue like I'm against it, but an issue with white socks on the road. Because I feel like around here where there's a lot of descents, I get my left socks always get a bunch of brake dust on it, and that doesn't come out as well as dirt does.
Interesting.
What they need is a good PFAS coating, and we can all ride white shoes.
Oh,
exactly.
No.
Everywhere.
Oh, geez. Maybe that's why they're staining more than they used to. But
perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I guess, the takeaway from that is that it's definitely a trend. It feels like every new XC/gravel shoe release is coming out in a white. But I think maybe just consider how you use them. And if you're likely to ride in a lot of like mud, then just beware that they may get stained. And that, unlike Matthew van der Poel, you'll probably not be given a new pair when they do get stained. So yeah, anyway, food for thought. I don't know if I love this trend. I do agree they look awesome, but I'm also like questioning the practicality and long term. I think it shortens the lifespan of the product because you end up thinking they look gross and more likely to replace your shoes. So yeah.
I don't know about that though, because like I said, like I clean my white shoes a lot more. I take better care of them because they show all the dirt. All the dark colored shoes, like I just keep riding them until they break because like I don't do anything to them because they're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because no one's going to tell if they're a bit dirty. So maybe getting white shoes is better.
Yeah, okay. Or just clean your shoes regardless of what color they are.
Exactly. Anyway,
it's your choice. Do as you want. But I don't know. Just the staining on mine made me think like, this is of questionable benefit. So. All right. Well, let's get on to the quick tech bites for this week, and then we'll follow up with a bit of Ask a Wrench. But Suvi, you over the weekend were at iceBike, which is the kind of trader-only show in the UK for the very large distributor of Madison. What sort of brands does Madison carry or import into the UK?
Probably the biggest one known is Shimano. They've got DT Swiss.
Never heard of it. Oh, sorry. Go on.
All right. I've not heard of that either. What others do they have? Park Tool. Yep. They have Genesis bikes and K-Edge, Finish Line, lots of parts and accessories. Profile Design, Vittoria, Maxis. The list goes on. There's a lot of smaller brands as well. A couple added, I think, this year as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And what did you see? Like, I'm looking at your gallery that's on Escape. There is a new Park Tool work stand, which I'll discuss in a second. But looks like Profile Designs have a new, is it Canter race handlebar? What's this thing about?
Yeah, that one was quite an interesting one. So it's a very narrow aero race handlebar, carbon handlebar, and it comes from widths that start from 33 centimeters, so very, very narrow. That's on the hoods, 33. And it has this very kind of, what would you call it? Aero profile. They were explaining it, how it's really good for these positions that people nowadays want to have with their wrists on the bars and just really tucked in low position. And also, they did mention that it's maybe good for just smaller riders and maybe, for those who have not been catered before with handlebars. Though I don't know how accessible of an option this is for everyone because it does retail for £430. So it is a lot. Hefty price for a handlebar because I was thinking at first when I was talking with the brand rep that, this may be like a junior bar, and then realized like probably not a bar that you just get for a few, like a season or two. So yeah, but an interesting development.
Yeah, and it's not impossible that Profile Designs may do an aluminium version of this in the future, like a less shapely but just as narrow version. So that is an interesting one, and it kind of proves that iceBike gives you some access to products that aren't quite released yet. That one I couldn't find info about anywhere, and the other one I couldn't find info about anywhere was a new Park Tool work stand, a consumer level work stand, the PRS 30. And this thing's pretty cool. It's basically got like what I can only assume is like a long thread on the inside, and like a lead screw, and it basically allows manual height adjustment of the stand on a consumer stand. So it looks like you can. The plan is to have either like a handle that you can crank the height adjustment, or as I've seen in a video and how they're displaying it at the show, is with a drill that you can rapidly run through it with a hand drill. I'm excited for this one. I would like to try this.
When I saw it, and it was probably the most used product, I would say demonstrated product at the show, I was very much thinking of you when I saw it. And all the different tool stands. I was like, this is Dave's realm. Yeah. No, it's exciting. I'd say like when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's quite clever. It's basically like the Remco bike lift stand that I reviewed, which is a sort of affordable electric stand. It's kind of like that, but without the electronics. So it's like, I'd assume internally it's not too different to what the design of Remco is, but should be quite a bit cheaper again. Or I'd hope so, just given that it's basically a manual control. But keen to see where that goes, because e-bikes are heavy. Well, one to see, it's not officially released yet. Hopefully I'll have some info on it when it is. So next tech bites, TrainerRoad. If you're a user of TrainerRoad, their workouts are now available in Zwift. So I mean, this one, the main details are just that, for those that want to use both platforms, previously you kind of had to use one or the other, but now you can actually get your TrainerRoad training programs directly in Zwift, and there is a feedback loop, so you can fill out the survey once your workout's done, and that sends the information, like difficulty of the ride and all that, back to TrainerRoad, so you can track your training progress. I think this is pretty cool. I think it's obviously, I would consider it more for like the super user of indoor training, because you're going to have two of these platforms and the subscription fees associated. But I think, it brings the community aspect and the entertainment of Zwift and sort of the better structured plans of TrainerRoad. So I think it's a cool development. All right, we spoke about new Park Tool, but Enduro Bearings have some new tool that I've been eagerly awaiting. I still don't have my hands on as of yet, but the BRT 040, it basically is like my beloved BRT 002 and 003, which are press fit bottom bracket tools. But this almost combines the two into a universal bearing puller for like 24mm, 29mm, and 30mm bottom bracket spindles, and it can be used on some hubs too. And you combine it with Enduro's hub bearing press of various generations, and it sort of works to smoothly pull out a whole range of bearings. So I'm keen to see whether this can actually pull out whole press fit bottom brackets like the like those BRT 002 and 003 tools, but we'll see. It retails for $250, so not a cheap thing, but if it's anything like the previous press fit tools, this should be a really good option. All right, Berd, the makers of the polymer spokes, very, very lightweight textile spoke. They have a new Aero road wheel, the Peregrine Aero, and they've partnered with Head. Head's providing the rim on this one. It's a 62mm depth Aero wheel. These lighter spokes bring the weight down to a still kind of ho-hum 34 grams. Zach, an Aero wheel with non-Aero spokes, what do you think?
I think an Aero wheel with not Aero spokes is not great to start. And the main selling point behind Berd is that they're light. And these aren't really that light. Like, I did a quick look, and like similar depth wheels, like the Envy, the 6.7, the Roval Rapide, Bontrager, the 62mm Aeolus are all lighter and going to be more Aero. And I understand that the Berds also have some compliance things that are going for them, but I just don't see it as a competitive wheel, let alone the like continual maintenance that you have to do to them because the spokes just constantly loosen up.
Yeah, the constantly loosening up, I think, is more like they need to be pre-stretched significantly, and I think
there's a break-in period for sure. Like you buy a set of wheels and then you ride them for a couple weeks and you need to tension them. But I also have a few customers that have these wheels, and it's something that you're doing at least annually to tension them because they just slowly lose tension over time.
Interesting. Yeah, my understanding of it was that they've sort of since revised that, where they now suggest using a machine to stress the spokes and basically get all the stretch out of them permanently, but it's sort of like requires some pretty significant steps to get there, which would not necessarily something like anyone building wheels can do without such a machine, just because the load's required and you need to keep repeating it basically until there's no more stretch in them. But I think there are a lot of wheels on the market that suffer that. Yeah,
they just, I don't know. It's hard to be supportive of a product that is a wheel. Like you want to just be able to go ride your bike and not have to think about things. And something that isn't just set and forget is kind of hard to be a fan of. But anyways, people love them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think fundamentally it feels like perhaps the wrong application for Berd spokes. I think Berd spokes make the most sense in off-road applications where speeds are a little bit lower, where aero matters less, and where compliance and weight matters more. And I think that makes a lot of sense for the product. But 62 mil depth aero road wheel may not be it. So anyway, time will tell. Speaking of wheels, Garbaruk, the best known for its aluminium machined components like cassettes. They do cranks, they do chain rings, they do aftermarket derailleur pulley cages. They are getting into wheels. I would say this is their biggest new product in a long time. The last one being a crankset, and this one ups the ante a little bit more. And they're basically doing complete wheels with their own hubs, 60 tooth engagement points, and they're most notably doing it with their own spokes. They've got aluminium spokes. Zach, I think you rightfully said it reminded you of something else. What did it remind you of?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if Industry 9's patent expired.
Did they have a patent?
I would assume so. Like for a spoke that the nipple's at the rim that's attached to the spoke and then it threads are at the hub, like surely that's a patent, but maybe not. But these regardless, they look very similar.
Yeah. So colorful anodized round aluminium spokes. Garbaruk are claiming that they stiffness to weight ratios is better than a steel bladed spoke, but I mean i9 has been doing its aluminium spokes for many years. I'm going to say 15 plus years at this point, and it wasn't an easy road for them. I mean, they had all sorts of fatigue-based failures early on, and it's not a simple equation. So wish Garbaruk all the luck on this one, but truthfully, I'd probably be shy to buy a first generation of these.
Yeah, it's interesting too. They're touting the stiffness to weight ratio, where most mountain bike wheels have kind of went away from that and went more towards the compliance side of things.
Yep. So I don't know. I feel like I haven't used these, and I don't think it's fair to say and to question the product, but it does feel like Garbaruk's doing something that might have been very popular a decade ago, but now with the likes of these polymer spokes that are lighter again and add compliance, I think, I don't know, it's an odd one to see in this day and age. But anyway, I could be mistaken on that one. So one I'm keen to see and ride at some point to get a true opinion on it. But anyway, keep an eye out for those. And then lastly, Pivot mountain bike company out of Arizona, they've announced that they're joining the lifetime warranty club. So they're for any bikes sold from January 1st 2024, they will now have a lifetime warranty on the frame. And adding to that, they've joined the likes of Santa Cruz and more recently Specialized in having a lifetime bearing replacement policy. So the pivot bearings in the frame, they will, if you wear them out, they'll basically give you a new bearing kit free of charge. And like Specialized in Santa Cruz, labor isn't included in that deal, but yeah, I mean, those bearings can be costly. So it's a nice deal. Zach, have you had first-hand experience with any of these policies?
Not in a long time, just because I am not a bike company dealer for anyone, really.
Gotcha.
But I think it's good that there are warranties now. I think the not covering labor part is a bit, I don't know, kind of disappointing. Like, that's the expensive part, right? But it's still nice to get some free bearings if they wear out.
Yeah, I think the labor thing's just too costly to do because you either lose most of your profit on the frame by reimbursing a shop to do the job, or you upset your dealer significantly by forcing them to accept a labor rate that is unfair. So, I mean, it is a very labor-intensive task to replace frame pivot bearings, so I kind of understand why they wouldn't include labor in the deal. But anyway, free bearings. Yeah, another way to sell a bike, I guess. Anyway, that's the quick tech bites for this week. As a reminder, a lot of what we spoke about is on Escape Collective. You'll find a lot of these small parts covered in our daily news section on the website, which gets updated, as the name suggests, every day. And otherwise, yeah, the PFAS that we covered, the iceBike coverage, and the Cannondale SuperX are all covered online and coincidentally by Suvi. So well done on that one, Suvi. You've had a busy few weeks.
I will do no more work after today for this week.
Good. Take the next month off. All right. Well, yeah, it's time to get to the member-only section of this episode, which is Ask a Wrench. If you're not already a member, then please consider joining. Head to escapecollective.com/join to become a member. And if you are a member, it's just a couple of easy steps away to gain access. Just head to Escape Collective and head to your account, and you'll find all the details on how to very quickly sign up. As for what you'll be missing if you're not on the member feed, this week, Brad Copeland, Zach, and myself answer some questions from members on the topics of chasing faults in the SRAM axis system, including what seems to be a fairly common issue with battery retention. And we also cover how to remove dried up sealant from within a tire. And then we have a big discussion and a tangent. The discussion's about drop bar mechanical cable routing, and the tangent is about our go-to cables. So that one's got plenty to listen to in that one. All right, well, with that, I think let's call it. And for those that are members, thanks for sticking around and enjoy Ask a Wrench. And for those that aren't, you'll hear from us next week.